Right, you're like top 28 on console?
When it comes to tank, I think I'm at 41-38 right now, and I think that's like 68.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Cool. So, that's interesting.
Hello, gentlemen.
How you doing today?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
Oh, pretty well. You seem to have a little bit of a fan club in the chat today. People are excited.
Yeah, I told the console Overwatch to come out and support. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, sweet.
I am looking forward to this one. Are you a big name in the Overwatch console community?
On PlayStation, maybe. I've been in the scene for about 2 years. I used to do competitive Call of Duty before that, but then kind of got into Overwatch and really enjoyed playing Overwatch. So I just love the team aspect of it. So yeah. I kind of quit playing ranked and got really into team aspect, and that's how I kind of grew as a player.
My goodness.
And that kind of enabled me to climb and stuff like that. So now I'm low GM on all roles.
For my own amusement, I suppose. What, in your opinion, what's the main differences between console and PC Overwatch?
I've rarely played PC Overwatch, but kind of the biggest thing, I feel like hit scan difference can be really big, especially at the lower elos. I feel like aim assist can really carry a hit scan player on a more consistent basis, as opposed to like the really high level PC players. But I think it still really boils down to team play at the end of the day, especially when we get up towards tier 5, tier 6 kind of console organized play.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of wins team fights. So that's what we've been working on the most, is trying to organize a little more and setting the pace too. I think that's our problem when we lose fights. We don't set the pace for fights.
I haven't watched scrims on console before, so I'm excited.
All right, let's take a look at what we got here.
Together we are strong. I do not trust this homeless, and I do not like this place.
Okay. I think it's going to be the highest SR VOD that we've actually looked at since started coaching again, so that's exciting as well.
Yeah. High SR and organized team lobby. Gonna be lots to look at. Keeping the sim first fight, okay.
Yeah, so we TP and then speed to point, get there first.
Mm-hmm.
This initial positioning is great. Tiny bit early on that bubble.
Ooh. I think just the general pace for what your composition is seems a bit fast to me. You're playing with Sim McCree, meaning you don't have like the immediate hard engage potential that you might have from like a Mei or a Reaper of other potential rush or brawl comps. So these early bubbles we're using are really good to get charge, but it's sort of opening up windows for them to push into us, and we kind of want those bubbles to sustain the longest team fight possible. And we got to be really careful about when we're using bubbles, so that when we're using them, we're, yes, getting a lot of charge from them, but we're also sort of delaying their engagement so that our Sim and our McCree can come online throughout a longer team fight. We're not necessarily looking for that early burst from Reinhardt, because there's not going to be as much follow-up as if we had that Mei or Reaper like I was talking about.
Yeah,
So
I've been really trying to balance that, because we have a very aggressive main tank. So a lot of times it really strokes really hard, as you saw you got splashed there. But the Koff is definitely our weakest game mode too. I feel like we get very split sometimes, similar to like even when we're trying to run brawl, we get split. That's what I kind of talked about, team play and setting the pace. And I feel like that can be easily fixed, but that's other side things. But yeah, definitely I agree with the bubbles.
Yeah. So the general rule being, defenders pick where and attackers pick when. And one of the massive advantages with you playing the Symmetra and the Lucio is that you're at this point first, like hugely first. And this point especially has a very, very massive objective. There's some points that have the objective being more or less fortified, but this is a position where, regardless of where they rotate, they still have to push through some sort of choke where you have cover and can defend and push against them. If they're coming out through Elevant, not only do they have to push around these corners, but they don't have very good sight lines because their back line's on low ground, their front line's on high ground here, sort of thing. So you've gotten the wear down. You've chosen to be the defenders because the defenders get an advantage on this point for actually kind of fortifying this presence here. Now, with you being a little bit more aggressive and trying to actually get some charge early, that opens up a gap for where the attackers get to choose when to fight, and the when they are going to fight is when you have those cooldowns used already, and you're kind of forcing the issue, where especially in these longer fights, you're going to get this value, and when they choose to engage, you'll use it, and you'll have energy, and a higher peak energy than kind of having to collect energy early on and then waiting for it to decay. So especially in this sort of situation where you're on this point, you're fortifying it, you've chosen that this is where you're going to fight, and unless the opponent really badly fucks up, you're not going to speed outside of the point to punish anybody. You know, if the opponent is delaying and you're not finding any use on your bubble because there's no real need to use it, then that's okay because the opponent's just wasting time. It's there are some situations in Overwatch where you know, there's nothing wrong with nothing. If the opponent's not doing anything and you're on defense and you've got the point, you're capturing it. You know, don't make an unforced error, I would say. And then the other thing, just that, so both of your bubbles were really, the first one was really quite good because it was catching a fire strike, getting that energy and preventing the Earth Shatter charge from the enemy Reinhardt. But the second one was very much an unforced personal bubble where you're using it basically to bait people into shooting you, and then just backing off once you've got the energy. I was surprised to see how much they were actually shooting you because that's an extremely telegraphed play. Like, there's no reason for the Zarya to do that other than to collect energy. So people will pressure you, and then as soon as you bubble, they'll just stop and force you to back off. And it's also like a really good way at, you know, higher level players to not get any energy but have to use it or else you're being threatened. So that's very much like an unforced or like a bait play where it only works because the opponent is making a mistake, and that's not sort of the plays that you want to go for.
Okay, so spend more time kind of fortifying the point and use the bubbles more in a reactionary way when they try and force hunt a point.
Yeah. Yes, very much so. So, like, the you know, the bubble on the Reinhardt was a little bit early, but we won't nitpick because we've only seen like 4 bubbles so far or something like that. But your personal bubble, you know, other than kind of protecting yourself and other than getting energy, you know, like Tikatee's is his favorite thing to talk about is kind of like using that bubble as kind of like the go button where once you've got that high energy and you've got the bubble, you can kind of go aggressive to use your bubble as like a little bit of a get out of jail free card. But it doesn't have to just be used as an aggro button. You can also use your personal bubble in order to cover for other people depending on your positioning. So you can get in front of people, you can block cooldowns, you can block shatters or things like that. So if you are trying to do this more fortified thing, you can think about ways that are using your personal bubble that is going to impact or help people other than just yourself survive as well.
Understood.
Anything, Lou?
No, yeah. I think that just about covers it. I guess the only thing I would say too, like with that idea of using bubbles just to get charge, the higher up you go and the more organized teams you face, the less and less you'll be doing that because the less and less you'll be getting away with it. They'll be shooting it less. They'll be punishing it more that it's on cooldown, that kind of thing. So you want to get out of that habit as much as possible. It works really well in ranked when you want to just try and solo carry games by getting a ton of charge and rolling over the enemy team. But in a coordinated team environment, we need to be ready for these high impact moments for the bubbles.
Yeah, and I try and do it here because I thought we were losing this fight, and I go for the Ana here, which you'll see. But
yeah, this is I'm like, yeah, if you've lost your Reinhardt, you need to clutch this out. This is absolutely correct play. I don't like to see the full left click to kill. I would definitely like to see a right click finisher.
Okay.
I might actually disagree with you, Jayne.
Really?
I definitely agree with the right click finisher, but when you have multi targets, in this case with the Mercy as a potential swap target, sort of that, it's not really like spray transfer, but that's the only term I can think about from an FPS standpoint. But like going from target to target, saving your ammo, and when you are high charge and you know you can finish the kill anyway, I'm personally fine with keeping that left click, or I guess primary fire focusing down and then swapping to the next target.
Okay.
But yeah. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah,
and it was a very hard fight.
If you're talking ammo conservation, I can see what you mean with like left click beaming them. But in terms of like shortening the time to kill, actually land, like, because he was at 90 energy there, so his right click should be dealing about 85 to 90 damage. So at the health there, it should have been like one click and then immediately swapped on to the next target earlier. But ammo conservation, I suppose that what you're saying makes sense.
Just a little bit of min-maxing.
Practice makes perfect.
Thanks, see you tomorrow. Well, that's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate. Yeah. I said sorry, bud.
That was clearly not what you meant to do, though. So.
I'm curious, what does the communication sound like on your team when talking about when to use bubbles and when walking up?
Yeah. So what we found is that I tell him I have bubble because he's normally one that sets the pace and is very aggressive. So I tell him I have bubble. If I already used it, I have bubble in 4. Or if I say I have bubble, let me know when you want it. And then he says now, and I bubble him.
Okay, yeah, I mean, generally that's pretty good. The one thing I might try to push you on that to make it even cleaner is to push yourself as a Zarya player. Sometimes communication and being too strict on it can be limiting. So sometimes forcing the Rhine to say bubble now or being able to react to bubble now, sometimes it's even better just to say you have bubble for him to play like he's going to get bubble and then you to react for when it's going to get the most energy and find the most value for yourself. And sort of reading those situations as the Zarya player. This one was unlucky because someone walked in front of you, obviously, but it seemed like you could have held bubble for even just like half a second more for when he's actually more in their face, because we sort of, Ryan was calling bubble me, and then you bubbled him, or you went to bubble him, and then he started walking forward, where if you say, I have bubble, he starts walking forward, you react to him taking pressure, it's sort of a smoother transition into the fight.
Gotcha. Yeah, we kind of started that because when he first came on the team and such, our timing was off to where I was bubbling him when he was head shield up. We're not ready to go in and swing and that kind of stuff. So I wanted to make sure that we were bubbling him when he's swinging because we want him to obviously get shatter. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it comes with like that comfortability with each other as players and learning each other's tendencies and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's definitely those moments where we don't say it and then I just bubble him anyway because I know when he's going to be aggressive. But yeah, 100%. This is an interesting fight, by the way. I don't know how we popped the demo and we end up winning this fight eventually.
Really? Interesting grab. I would say you probably, I mean, I hate to say it, but you probably didn't deserve to win this fight.
I'd agree.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
No, I said it's an interesting fight, but our sim was like, especially, I got max charge, can you bubble me?
Right.
And I got a bubble on him, and then I was like, well, and then they said it was winnable, so I tried to grab person on point, and obviously there wasn't anyone there, but then the Mercy flew into it.
Yeah. Even just like holding it for an extra 1 second until you at least see a target. And going for the long range grab, there's nothing that can like deny it. There's no Genji reflect, there's no Diva Matrix, so the long range grab isn't bad, but you didn't really have a target when you threw it out. Ooh, a right click there would have gotten the kill.
Oh, so now you're in the club of the cult of the right.
There was only one target and he was running out of ammo already. There's different contexts,
but I agree there. I watched it yesterday, I agree there.
So you're using like a couple things just in terms of optimization. Like Lou and I will continue to bicker about left click, right click. But so there you are when there is a single target available, like that Zarya, you know, you're holding left click on them, but and you're doing a lot of really good right clicks, especially at long range, more of that like artillery Zarya. But when the Reinhardt is hard shielding, you're right clicking the shield. Is that something that you're doing frequently, or what's your idea when you see a Rhine shield or you're playing against double shield? What's your main strategy as Zarya to try and like deal with that, I suppose?
It's honestly a bad habit. I actually didn't know for a little time. I've been trying to break that habit because obviously when I'm full charge, left clicking or primary fire is going to do more damage over time.
For sure, yeah.
I didn't really know before when I first played Zarya, and then obviously I switched off to Zarya for a while, and now I'm back. But so that's something I need to start doing more. But that's just kind of a bad habit I'm trying to break.
All right. Well, if you recognize it's bad habits, it's just a matter of consciously fixing it over time, which you know, easier said than done sometimes. But yeah, especially
I feel like I don't know how, but I feel like with squishies I use alt fire and then primary fire more than I do with tanks. I don't know why. I guess it's just another thing that I just need to fix.
Yeah, with squishies, I definitely recommend that. I mean, there's a couple reasons. First of all, like getting the burst so that they have less time to react and call for healing. both at the start, surprising them with the damage, and then at the end, bursting them down and getting that elimination. But against tanks, where that initial burst and end burst are smaller relative to the overall size of their health bar, it's better to just put out tons of damage by just holding left click on them, and then right clicking at one ammunition. But I mean, your damage output here is already quite good, and I really like that you are playing a little bit off from your Reinhardt. There are some Zaryas who play very kind of just as like a singular unit with their Reinhardt, where with your projected bubble and with your personal bubble, you don't have to play in the same direction. You can play a kind of like side to side from one another, where if you're thinking about like Lijiang Tower Control Center, your Reinhardt can either hold on the point or in white, and then the Zarya can hold on the opposite side, so you can kind of have this like split, this crossfire. And this is one of the kind of evolutions that came out through GOATs, specifically with the San Francisco Shock and the Philadelphia Fusion were the two that played this style where, you know, instead of having GOATs just as one, they had GOATs with their Zarya and the Reinhardt playing separate. And I mean, if you were aware of the record of those two teams, they did very, very well with that strategy. So I do like that, how you've got, in some of these situations, you're not afraid to kind of control and poke out or just pressure the opponent on a flank or an angle or area that's different than your Reinhardt. That's quite good. But yeah, it's just like there's some little things about right-clicking at the end of your left click, holding left click on shields and tanks that could be cleaned up just a little bit. But overall, it's solid play so far. I mean, you certainly
and that's one thing
4K.
I've struggled with as far as positioning is knowing when to be aggressive, when not to be aggressive.
Yeah.
I feel like my default most of the time was kind of existing, winning by existing.
Yes.
So, which is definitely
and that can
valid,
carry you pretty far. It can carry you pretty far. Yeah, I think that one of the, especially on Zarya, or I mean, like other heroes as well, especially the heroes that have low mobility. You know, there's ways to be aggressive other than pressing W, and I know that that's absolute heresy for everybody in Twitch chat right now. But you can be aggressive by pushing up and like taking space, angles, sight lines, areas away from opponents in different areas so that they have less room to breathe. Whereas like a passive would be letting them take those spaces and using those to pressure you. So you can aggressively take kind of neutral areas or resources just in general, whether those are sight lines or space or whatever you want to call it. And you can aggressively take those spaces other than just aggressively going into the opponent. Whereas like, if you aggressively go into the opponent, you know, they have areas to retreat. One of the other ways that you can be aggressive is just by aggressively taking the places where they would want to retreat to or want to move into so that they can't move, they can't pressure, they can't reposition, they can't take cover, they can't stabilize, and you're just like suffocating them. And that's another way of being aggressive in this gameplay. So
that's one thing I try and do if I have an opportunity to take an off angle, like where their supports are going to back up at, and maybe throw a couple right clicks in and try and at least force out cooldowns from them or their attention at the very least. So I definitely see the benefits of both.
And you're already doing this. You know, you could do it more, certainly, but you're already doing part of this. I don't think that it's something that would be hard to kind of push to a little bit more of a fully fledged playstyle.
Okay, cool. It was a bad grab. I recognize that. I watched it yesterday.
Yeah. I mean,
it was unnecessary.
You know it.
I love those moments where it's like, I shouldn't do this, and then I can just like watch myself doing it anyway, and then I do it. I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. I knew it the entire time, but I did it anyway.
Yeah.
I watched this over yesterday to try and think of some questions, and I was like, wow, what was I thinking there? I was like, I guess we want to clean this out. I don't want anyone. I don't want anyone left standing. But yeah,
it's a really tough line to stand on because you don't want to be holding grab throughout an entire team fight that's winnable, but also you don't want to be wasting grab in team fights that are already won. So just communication around what the state of the team fight is, whether or not your ult is needed to be used, because it is one of the most powerful ultimates in this composition.
You know, one of the things, just from, you know, I make that joke about you know, I can see myself doing things wrong as I'm doing them and I'm not able to stop it. You know, it's half tongue in cheek, but there is a legitimate reason behind that sort of thing, and it usually comes from you planning too far in advance. And you know, people usually talk about tunnel visioning as in tunnel visioning on an opponent or something like that, but really what people tunnel vision on is a plan. And if you're kind of like thinking about like, you know, I need to use a grav or something like that, then you're going to be thinking about how to use the grav, and as soon as you see an opportunity, you're like, grav will get some value here, but you kind of lose the context of whether getting value there is worth it, or whether you're already going to win the team fight. And I was talking about this yesterday with a different student, where you kind of want to be not using grav as a goal or a plan amongst itself. Like, you never want to go in and be like, I'm going to grav. It's like that's not the explicit plan, right? It's like the plan should always be, we're going to win the team fight, and we need to win the team fight by graving in this situation, or doing something like that. Where you can even think about it like, in the larger sense, the plan is to win the team fight. And if the plan is to win the team fight, and then you see a good opportunity to use the grav, but the team fight's already won, then like, if that's what you're if that's what you're focusing on, is winning the team fight, and the team fight is won, it doesn't matter if you held your grav. Like, it doesn't matter if you hold your grav for 3 team fights if you won all 3 team fights without it. No, not at all. So, like, grav, there is not a goal or a plan in amongst itself to use your grav. And you can have this sort of thing where it's like, if in a team fight, if you're in this neutral situation and you need a pick to turn this into 6v5, and your grav can kill 1 person, it's like, if the plan is to, if you're getting pressured and you need to find a pick, just 1, so you can start relieving some of the pressure, turning tempo in your direction, and your grav will allow you to do that, use grav on 1 person. You don't have to use grav on 6 people.
Yeah.
There's
luckily I have a better grav later where you'll see, but my next grav's gonna be much better.
All right.
And kind of along that thinking, thankfully, but I totally agree. And that's the other thing with this comp too, is like combos necessarily, other than window maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
this
probably one of the reasons I used it so aggressively.
This composition doesn't really have a lot of combos with your graviton, other than maybe High Noon. But that's a that's a difficult one to do, because your Reinhardt's going to be wanting to swing into the grav, but then if your McCree is just High Nooning and standing still, he can still get shot at by the people in the grav. So, especially with them, or do they not? Oh, they're not playing a defensive support ultimate normally.
Yeah,
they were on Lucio for the mercy.
Yeah, I mean, like, the current meta composition is Lucio or BAP, and that's 2 ways to shut down your graviton. Where it's like, if you grab somebody separate, like, even if you grab the Baptiste alone, and he lamps himself or something like that, the lamp isn't going to be shielded. Whereas if you grab everybody all together, the chances of them all standing in the open is pretty low. So the Baptiste is going to be able to deploy his drone either right behind a corner or behind the Rhine shield or something like that, and it's going to survive, and the team's going to survive. So, but yeah, I'll stop monologuing.
I'm asking a lot of questions too, so we'll proceed.
Yeah, just another example here of using bubbles, looking to go really aggressively when we have full point control. There was no immediate target to be rushing on or anything like that. And now, if they had pushed in during that moment, if they had pulled the Zarya bubble, for example, and their Rhine was with them, it would have been tough to hold that position. Just these small little ways that we open ourselves up to the opponent.
Ooh, nice.
Oh, you got juked?
Flush sim wall.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh no, that Rhine got rezzed.
Yeah.
So we mentioned before the idea of like taking these off angles and flanking a little bit. This, I think, is sort of like an extreme case of that, where you want to be using like Rhine as like you want to think of yourself as a pendulum suspended by the Rhine. You want to be rotating around him and using him as like a swinging point to anchor yourself. But what you did here is, by going this far off the point, going towards that Ana, for example, if you get that kill, that's great, but then you don't really have a way of stabilizing yourself. And thank God for the sim wall, but by going this aggressively for this long, it becomes really, really hard for you to get back into the fight. And they essentially just found a way to ignore you by playing on the other side of the map here.
Okay.
So here, if you get this kill in this Ana, this is great, but you're using your self bubble to try and get this kill, which means you won't have the self bubble to reposition back to your Rhine. It means you won't have that stability throughout a longer team fight. And yeah, it just kind of this is how Brawl splits apart, basically, by everyone finding their individual value, but not thinking about where the team is playing.
Okay.
Yeah, so this at any point where like, if you are going to be playing that sort of pendulum sort of style like Tikatee is talking about, you usually want to be staying in line of sight and in beam range of your Reinhardt. So this sort of situation, like where your Baptiste is standing right now by Elephant, is probably about the position where you would want to be in order to support your Reinhardt. And as your Reinhardt moves up to the choke, you'd play closer to the corner so that you can control this area down in here with your right clicks shelling people and left clicks if people try and push into you. But you can still left click your Reinhardt to bubble him. And the other people on your team, like your McCree, for example, are going to probably be positioned around the Reinhardt, shooting down this, like, the McCree is going to be able to control this sight line because he's more reliant on the hard shield of your Reinhardt in order to get value. Whereas if the McCree is standing over here, you know, a damage-boosted Helix rocket, a sleep, a headshot from the McCree, or anything like that is really going to put him at risk, where you can more easily exist without hard cover than a McCree can, because it's just way more risky for him. So this kind of line here is already being covered by the Reinhardt being a physical presence, augmenting the cover, providing threat to people trying to walk up to him with his hammer, and longer range piercing threats with his fire strike. McCree's going to augment that with just his left clicks and his damage, where it's like this is an area that you can uniquely control, where you don't ever want to pour too many resources into one thing. You don't want to pour, you want to, in the same way that you want to have your DPS playing separately, like you don't want to have both of your snipers controlling one sight line. You don't want to have both of your flankers controlling one flank. You want to be spreading out your controls so that you can pressure them in as many different ways as possible. That's where you've already got this sight line covered. So by standing here, you can cover this area and, more or less this sight line. Like even if somebody tries to take cover behind this pillar because the McCree is shooting them, this angle might give you enough time to land a right click right there and finish them off or boop them back into your McCree's line of sight. So that's where those crossfires get really powerful.
Perfect.
I guess like one more thing to cover from the situation is we're playing really aggressively, trying to make this play. We're almost playing as if this is like a fight we need to salvage, when in reality, we still have the point. We still have ultimates ready to commit. We still have control of the map right now. We are at advantage at this point. So by playing this aggressively, we're opening ourselves up to potential disadvantages. And you living at 7 HP was just a razor thin wire away from giving up a huge advantage to the enemy team. Yeah, so scary. And yeah, all this time it takes for you to reposition, get back with the team, could have been better used, basically, by just playing a little more conservatively and a little closer to where your team was.
So at what point, like, you can keep playing it, but, like, he has 99 at this point, trying to build ult charge at this point, or do I try and hold point longer? What's the fine line between feeding them ults and me getting ult, and how do you approach that situation?
I would say each situation
die as soon as possible.
Yeah, I would say each situation is unique. As Zarya with such a high value ultimate, it doesn't hurt to try and number one thing, there's no way of you getting out right now. You got no bubbles. Your Reinhardt is dead, most importantly. There's likely no chance of you getting out here alive. So you need to choose between like jumping off the map or going to try die on point and get some ult charge. I would say since it is 99 anyway, you haven't died before overtime started ticking, so it doesn't really matter when you die. You're going to get that overtime spawn. I would say try to get to point as soon as possible, just to deny, since they are at 60%, you dying earlier might be the difference between them being at 75% and them being at 85%.
Okay. The other thing that you could potentially do here is if you are going to, if you're the last one to die, there's no way of you getting out and you're going to want to like trade a kill or something. Trading a kill on a Reinhardt isn't going to be very valuable because he can charge back from spawn and be faster back earlier than you. But, for example, if you staggered like a Baptiste or an Ana's, a very, very slow, high-impact hero, then your team, especially if your team is respawning, even if you don't make it back to the fight any faster than the other Ana or Baptiste does, if your team has a main support and the enemy doesn't, your team has a massive advantage during the poke phase and can gain space during that. So you can try and like trade out for a character that gives your team advantage in the neutral, but selecting that in the middle of a chaotic situation can be almost impossible.
Yeah, I guess I was over here because we were calling him after he got rezzed, and our Kree's still over here, obviously. But makes sense.
Yep.
this is the kind of situation we don't want. Dying a little bit after they already flipped the point.
Yep.
Granted, you won't get the overtime spawn now.
Wait, does overtime spawn affect?
If you die after they flip, no.
Oh.
The overtime spawn does affect Koth. Yes.
I did not know that. Interesting.
Or wait, does it? now I'm wondering because it kind of makes sense for it to not.
I thought it only affected 2 CP. Well, something for us to look into, I guess. I've made Lou doubt himself.
I thought it was just 2 CP too, so I just learned something, or I didn't.
Or I
need to
didn't
unlearn it.
Oh no. We'll test that outside of the coaching session. But...
Okay.
I feel like I've gone crazy.
Me too. I hate it when I hate it when I've like I know something and somebody's like, "Are you sure?" And then I'm like, "Nope, I'm no longer sure."
Yeah, I no longer have a brain.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, really good to find the squishy targets there and not just overly tunnel on the Rhine in your face.
What was Arrow's SAT acronym?
Structure Analysis Theory.
Okay, that was not what I was thinking at all. All right. Damn. So there was because we were talking about this at the time. I'm trying to remember the word he had, but like overall, the main like feeling that I'm getting from your gameplay is that you're focused on kind of the tactics of the hero. How do you do specific things like how do I use my bubbles? How do I do my left clicking, my right clicking? How do I grab? And these are the things that it looks to me like you've optimized and you've tried to do really well. And speaking to your SR as well as your ability to play in a team environment like this, you're quite good at the tactical part of the play on Zarya. I think that the thing that is probably limiting you is not how to perform things mechanically or tactically, and there is some room to improve both your tactics and your mechanics, but these are kind of like things that are, I mean, you're Grandmaster, we're talking about literally optimizing from Grandmaster to top 500 differences. Like there's room there, but it's not like the main weakness that you have, sort of thing. And I think
top 500 is low on console, luckily, so yeah. 42 is like I'm like 28 or 60 somewhere in there, so yeah.
Right, you're like top 28 on console?
When it comes to tank, I think I'm at 41, 38 right now. I think that's like 68.
Oh, wow.
Holy
Dropped
shit.
a little bit, but...
Okay. Cool. So, that's interesting. So, going back to my main point, though, I think that the big thing that would really push you to be probably, I guess, on console than like a top 10 player would be like applying the tactics to serve a specific strategy. So strategy being more like what you're doing, and tactics is how are you doing it. So everything that you're doing, the how of what you're doing makes sense. Like it's really good, it's well executed, but it's kind of like what are you trying to accomplish, or why are you doing this, or why did you make this tactical decision? Okay. And I think that kind of like higher level thing about where even if you took everything that you're doing in terms of like bubble usage, left clicking, right clicking, an ultimate, and made it serve some sort of higher strategic purpose, either individually, something you're trying to accomplish during a team fight, or especially since you play in a competitive environment, something that you are trying to accomplish as a team. I feel like that would, it's like you can do the same things, just do them a little bit differently in order to try and have like the ultimate goal of winning the team fight, or winning team fights with a larger time advantage, or winning games and things like that. And there's going to be a lot of that we're not going to be able to take a look at because we don't have the voice comms. But yeah, that's the main feeling that I get from your gameplay.
No, I agree, and that's kind of my mindset just in life in general. I'm very analytical when it comes to everything, so I feel like that's another reason why aggression has been an issue for me in the past, is because I have been thinking a lot when it comes to what should I be doing in this team fight, how can I manage cooldowns, all those kind of questions. But
so even at the level that you're at, you're still actively thinking about like, use my grav, use my bubbles. Like, in terms of like, what do you think about in the middle of a team fight? Is it how you personally use your cooldowns and your abilities?
Well, no. When it comes to like the scrim, for example, I'm more focused on what we should be doing as a team, and like that fight, for example, me seeing the soldier and Mercy on the left and seeing the opportunity. Let's get these guys out of the way, and then hopefully this can win as a team fight. I guess kind of. I guess I was planning to use Grav in that sense and predicting that, but good question to think about that.
I'm trying to think about how I would want to approach this. I think, ideally, if you're talking about the way that's going to allow you to kind of multitask as much as possible, ideally you move a lot of these things, like the decision to grab, like whether you're left-clicking or right-clicking, like when you're bubbling, you want to move those to more or less like, automatic, instinctual, or subconscious thoughts. So
that's what I'm saying, like the bad habits, the right-click and left clicking. I would say that's habit, just as far as how I beam people, all that kind of stuff. I would definitely say when it comes to Zarya, I definitely think I play in bubbles and play in grav, but definitely as far as like mechanics wise of doing damage, I would say that's pretty good to mind kind of stuff.
Okay. Luke, do you have anything?
No, not really.
Okay.
We're already 45 minutes into this VOD, and we've only covered one cough point. Yeah, I'm always a big fan of talking about the decision-making process in general. So I think it'd be good to like take a bit of time to also just talk about decision-making in a team environment. And this is not something that just comes down to you as an individual. This comes down to you as a team, all 6 of you guys, what you are trying to accomplish at any given moment. And as much as we can offer you during this individual VOD review, realistically to grow as a team and to make these decisions the best they can be in a team environment is going to take a lot of introspection from you guys.
Great.
And getting on the same page about a lot of stuff. Do you do VOD reviews as a team?
I've been busy with work, so I used to try and coach the team a little bit, or at least go over VODs together. Our main tank likes to do it on his own. We don't have a coach right now.
Right.
We used to a long time ago. But yeah, that's where it's at right now for us.
Gotcha. Yeah, a lot of growth in a team can literally just come from people talking and learning what every other person was thinking about at any given moment. And you'll get a better idea of what you are trying to do, what your teammates are trying to do, and how you can help each other.
Yeah, normally like after a map or after our series or whatever, you kind of talk about what we thought went wrong, what went right, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, rolling out Ball Sig. Haven't seen this composition in a while, but I love it.
You really do.
I'm glad to see you didn't commit there.
Yeah. I was I was like, please don't slam. It was risky enough because they did have the rock and the
yeah, they've got so much CC.
They've got a lot of CC, right? And
they
had no reason to have used that. Like the Sigma might have yeeted the rock to try and get some extra thing, but I don't think we saw it. You didn't know that for sure. So if you had gotten stunned there without the grapple,
I saw the Kree, so I was like, well, I'm not slamming.
Yeah.
I just was going that right side to scout and then see what's going on, and yeah, kind of mess this up right here after this. But one thing I've been working on with Ball is I made up for it. But as far as hop slam, that's something I've been working on.
Sorry, what slam?
Yeah.
Like
jumping against the wall and then being able to.
Oh shit! I can't even do that. Man, even Needle tried to teach me how to do that. Impossible. I don't. That tech is so hard.
It's really hard.
So interesting. You guys are. I mean, that boop was huge, obviously, but I think it exemplifies sort of the tempo we're trying to play at versus the tempo we should be playing at. And we were playing as a team fairly aggressively. The only thing you could have done more aggressively would have been even to slam into them, but just the rolling through them twice while they're still in that corner, even that can get you killed early on. So we want to wait for moments of transition when they are moving from that corner to try and take the point or to try and push us out on the pillars. And they got 2 picks, so they started moving forward, and then you rolling through them from behind, that was perfect timing. That's exactly how we punish transition periods. We can still wait for those even before doing anything. We can just sit back where you were right here, or even go to their mega or try to wrap around their spawn to get to the position you were in before to get behind them, and just wait for those opportunities to present themselves rather than try to force them early. Because a really good coordinated team will be baiting you as the ball player if you play this aggressively. They'll be baiting you to try and swing through till you get flashbanged. If they have a brig, you'll get stunned. You'll get pulled by Orisa, rocked by Sigma. And then that'll be their excuse to go in because there's no more external threat than the rest of your team.
Don't worry, when we try and do a combo later, you'll see I get absolutely wrecked.
All right.
We'll watch that when it comes.
Yeah, this kind of matchup, it would apply to if they were playing like a brawl comp as well, like similar to what you were playing last map, is you need to really pick your battles as the ball player, because you are not going to get a lot done as an individual, but what you're going to do is going to enable your team through like little reoccurring windows that you get by rolling through them, by finding slams, by finding boops, that kind of thing. Because obviously we do not have the same frontline pressure they have with their Orisa Sigma. We do not have the same ability to set up our DPS as they have, but we can disrupt them as much as possible and buy ourselves as much time that way to find these opportunities. And with ball, you can find them at such in rapid succession that it can often become overwhelming for enemy teams. Oh my goodness, there's so much going on.
So you tried to slam the Sig combo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, obviously we neglected them more, but that's what we were going for, yes.
I think the follow-up was good, but you kind of need to like get in and get out right away, rather than try and beam down that soldier. Just slamming. What you want to do is be baiting their attention, but not taking so much that you die. So the longer you can stay alive, but also bait their attention by going in and out and in and out, the more opportunities your hit scans are going to get, the more opportunities your Sig's going to get to walk through.
I loved this. The last 10 seconds here. This is sort of perfect. So, going through connector here, making sure that this flank is clear, scouting, coming in from behind.
Perfect off angle.
Yeah, especially like as soon as they've gotten that window, disrupting the window, disrupting the team, as well as going through and getting the slam here. I mean, we're gonna ignore that part, but this right here, moving them like boom.
Yeah,
this is a huge slam. Get a little bit of damage while moving away from it. Pick up that mini, roll back through as well as mine.
You just completely shut down that play they were making.
Glorious. Yeah. Glorious.
Basically single-handedly too. And then yeah, you get out, and now your team cleans up because they got so mad at you that they turned around. Their Orisa turned around. Dying there is kind of fine at this point. But the fact that they had to commit so much just to dealing with you meant your Sigma just walks through for free, setting up your hit scan, setting up those kills.
The things that I definitely would like to see you do more, like more of those like flanks that are coming in from behind, and then also rotating in ways where you can pick up mega packs. Like you've used the mini a couple times, but you can have these ways where you could either have rolled back to the mega or to your mega. You re-engage there at like 200 HP. It's unnecessary for you to do that. So this is the sort of situation where I'd be looking to go where your soldier is on the far side and then rolling in through behind them to, again, push them outside of the choke where they're safe, and then you can also find that slam or just keep rolling and run away. Okay. So rolling in front of them is, it's going to be, in the term like attention is a resource, especially you're easier to deal with if people see you coming and can be like, all right, the ball's coming in, everybody aim, bow, 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 stun. But if you come in from behind, especially with the sound changes, it's harder for... Unless they're actively looking for you, in which case, I mean, if anybody like a McCree, a Soldier, a Baptiste, if they're looking for you, they're not shooting at your team. So if you're just kind of like always on the flank, always behind, and they have to keep one eye out, or they have to think about where you are at all times, they're just going to be able to do whatever job it is they actually want to do worse. So that's just kind of like an extra side benefit of coming in from behind. Not only will you survive longer, but you'll force the opponent to have to invest attention like elsewhere other than your team, and even when there's nothing for them to do with that attention. Good slam.
soldier screams for me to body block him.
Yeah, I was gonna say really good body block.
Yeah, really good.
Again, even in situations, you could be sort of like going around into their spawn and booping them in from behind them, but they kind of just walk past you anyway, so we take those.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mined there to block off their window and hopefully maybe get a kill and force that in more. And then obviously I wasn't healed up enough to get out, and I was gonna go for that mega, but
yeah. That was one of the things where the play would have made sense. Like if the play would have made sense to mine there if you had been a couple feet back, but it's one of those things where if it's not gonna work, you can't really force it. Especially as ball. You only, I mean, as ball, you're always on this like razor thin edge of feeding and farming sort of thing. So, even trying to take that like extra second in order to get into the perfect position for the mines, if it's not going to happen, don't force it. You can always just go around again, and they are going to like this position, or they're going to like a different another position. Ball, it's easy enough to go grab a mega and get another shot at it instead of trying to force it at the exact moment. Unless you're not in a clutch situation here, so you didn't have to make it happen right there. You could have given it another shot. There you are. Do it. I believe in you. Great. You see how
many mega packs.
Yeah, you see how they're looking at you too. Like, I mean, that was good. That was good stuff.
Yeah. Now all of their forward.
So we make the call here that I need to touch. I'm trying to do my best to touch.
Hey, you're doing a great job of it.
And the Mercy ends up contesting here when she vows.
Not sure I would have slammed there.
Yeah, again,
that was the wrong decision, I think, but
unfortunately, due to the point being at 99, we don't really have the luxury of forcing them into a transition phase. But still, we want to look for low committal engagements as ball there. We want to look to, at the most, roll through them, but even just like maybe trying to isolate a single member, maybe trying to boot people from an off angle like a little bit, but committing a slam especially is very risky.
It's super tempting to get a slam, right? Because it's a 6-man slam, but it's going to be very rare that you're going to be getting a 6-man fireball into a 6-man slam. So it's like, it's not just that a 6-man slam is valuable. It's like, you are choosing either or, but a 6-man fireball has the horizontal displacement, which especially in the team fight situation, horizontal displacement is going to be more valuable than vertical displacement. And you're still going to get a lot of damage and ult charge off of rolling through everybody, higher chance of survival, and there's one other thing that I can't remember. But yeah, so it's tempting to get that 6-man slam, but 6-man fireball probably more effective. Slams are going to be more valuable for trying to actually get eliminations or set up for like mine plays and things like that.
And then like, I don't know, I guess I was just impatient there because I feel like me jiggle peeking, I can only do it for so long, and then I'm dead and no one can really get there anyway.
Yeah,
so
realistically,
I was trying to weigh that, and obviously there's a short amount of time for me to make that decision.
Ideally, you swap out with your Sigma, and then you knock people into that crossfire, because they were all bunched up in that corner, so you're the one who can primarily disrupt them, either knock them in to get eliminated, knock them off, knock them away to get the flip, so, yeah, those are hard things to coordinate without pre-planning.
Again, really early bubble. I think that's the most common theme I'm seeing for your Zarya. It seemed a little bit like not really on purpose from the enemy team, but they actually really punished your bubble usage there with that big anti-nade. And then there was kind of no coming back from that.
Also, just that short period of confusion where you were looking for a bubble, didn't quite see what the enemy was doing, but you also weren't right-clicking when you were trying to figure that out. So, while you're trying to figure things out, still be right-clicking. That's a good bubble. Oh,
the TP, that's cute.
I'm not sure if you just didn't see the McCree, but I definitely would have gone for the McCree there in that fight. this Zarya being exposed, this is the right target in this situation, right? But when she
Okay,
drops...
Okay, yeah, just on there, yeah.
Yeah, so the McCree is right here, right? So he stays here shooting, and you're staying on the shield, but he's really close, so right click, left click, right click will finish him off in a heartbeat.
100%, I just tunneled.
Yep.
That Ryan. Don't worry, I go for him. I'm just kidding.
Very hard commit flank. Oh, you got your McCree with you, though.
Did we set the TP over there? He was
I'm
able
curious
to
what
come
happened
across.
with the TP. Did Ryan TP across? Where did your Ryan die? Did your Ryan die on point, like on the other side?
Think so?
Right.
Let's watch.
It's just a little. Yeah, this is just a coordination thing where if you want to set up that flank, you will have line of sight to Ryan when he drops, but you kind of need to drop at the same time as him. Otherwise, he gets rolled over before you get there in time to bubble him.
And then he just rolls over you two later.
Yeah. So like that split pressure, so almost similar to what we're talking about with ball, but in this case you need that LOS to the rest of your team in order to provide support to Zarya. Similar to what that situation on Shrine happened, where you overcommitting to one side, in this case overcommitting on time, not giving your Ryan enough time or heads up that you're making that play, meant that you weren't there to support him when he got pressured.
The TP.
Miscommunication. I knew we were TPing, but not walling, so he's personal. And done whenever he watched it.
This is good projected, though.
Yeah, this is not bad at all.
Done. How literally like 4 of us.
That's a grab.
Okay.
Good isolation.
Love these right clicks.
Would like to see us setting up high ground here, just to give ourselves more off. Okay, there we go. But it might be a bit too late now. Ooh, really early bubble. So again, you're in this habit of like bubbling for charge.
Yeah.
You were saying? Sorry?
No, I thought you were going to talk about what's coming up, but yeah, I agree on that bubble.
Well, I'm out of control. You want to talk about
This is supposed to be a grab window play, but it kind of goes.
It looks
terrible.
like it's going to be big. Hit the slow-mo button.
Огонь по готовности.
Pretty big brav. And you're on a really good off angle. Self-bubble's really early.
You didn't fire strike it, or your Reinhardt didn't. Unlock.
Yeah, fire strike there. Might have even killed the Lucio before he beats. Oh, the bubble blocks
bubble.
that, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I think we end up losing this fight. No, we kind of initiated first.
So, we could talk a little bit about ultimate economy in this kind of instance. Did you guys know they had sound barrier when we were going for that grab?
I don't remember the comms, but he may have said they had it, but
Век живи.
yeah, I don't remember
So-
if I'm being honest, but
When we commit 2 ultimates, grab and window, both bubbles, full Rhine barrier, and they counter all of that with just sound barrier, it becomes a very, very, very hard fight to stabilize. So typically what I say in those situations is you want to layer your resources, not sort of bundle them up all at once. You want to layer in a grab, force them to beat. As the beat's wearing off, maybe you won't get any kills in the grab, but then that means your window play is going to find a lot of value. Maybe that means Ryan just doesn't even try to follow up the grab at all, but he saves his shield for the team fight that follows after. Maybe it means you don't use your bubbles for the grab, so that you have them for once they're out of it and out of sound barrier at the same time. It's a bit of a higher level team concept, and it requires really good ult tracking to actually make work properly, but that was the kind of situation where we not only overcommitted ultimates to something that was countered by sound barrier, but we overcommitted positioning, overcommitted resources like bubbles and Rhine shield, and then had no chance of, we even committed lamp, I believe. So we had no position to sort of stabilize that fight when the play doesn't work out. We were all in on one combo, and it didn't work out, so we lose.
All right, so that's the end of the VOD. I really wish I had been taking notes. But so overall, just as like a summary of kind of what I got from your gameplay, is that overall your tactics are at a fairly high level. And you know, you being as high in top 500 as you are, that makes sense. I think that there are, like, surprisingly, I think that there is still some low-hanging fruit in the tactics department for things that you could improve, like early bubbling on your projected bubble, trying to actually force the use of your personal bubble in a method that actually requires the opponent to have made an unforced error in order for it to get value. I didn't talk about it past like the very first fight, but I also think that there are a lot of kills that are getting away from you because you're not going for right-click finishers, even if they aren't in melee range. Whether you're pushing through a Reinhardt shield, as soon as you get through that shield, the right-click melee to do that burst damage instead of trying to, you know, maintain your left-click on him as he's trying to wiggle away from you, especially multi-squishy targets. I think that even if the specific situation that I pointed out in the very first fight it could be argued that there, you know, should have left click, should have right click his finisher. There were definitely points in time throughout the VOD where you could have scored an elimination by using that high energy right click as a finisher. You're using the right clicks surprisingly to engage on squishy targets, but not to finish them off. Almost in every situation in a squishy target, you're holding your left click on them until they're dead, which is going to be, in certain situations, more challenging than just right clicking them and blowing them up. I think that you're putting a little bit too much thought into your graviton and trying to, like, again, force that to become a play or a goal amongst itself instead of serving some higher strategic purpose. I think that there's a little bit of tunnel visioning. Your positioning is good, but you're taking it too far sometimes, especially where it doesn't make context or it doesn't make sense in context with the positioning of your Reinhardt. Like Lou pointed out, a great example was on the end of the village there, where your flank didn't make sense because it left your enemy Reinhardt unsupported without a bubble. He went down, and then you went down as well. So playing in a way where you can be aggressive on the flank while still supporting and being supported by both your Reinhardt and the rest of your team. Did I miss anything, Lou?
I was just going to say the biggest note for me would be being too eager on the trigger when it comes to finding the engages, whether that's committing cooldowns like bubbles or engaging as ball. Both saw instances where we are trying to go a little bit too early and not necessarily getting punished every time for it, but the times we are getting punished for it, we're getting punished hard. So just being more willing to leverage positioning, leverage stuff like point pressure, leverage your tank resources against the enemy team and not force them early, just for some charge, just for some ult charge and stuff like that, makes it so you can have a more stable team fight when it actually starts evolving, that kind of thing.
Yeah, forcing things that don't need to be forced.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for us, Ben?
I think that's about it. I think that's about it.
Yeah.
That was really good. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, Overwatch enjoyed watching, and that's about it for me.
Awesome. Well, good. I expect to see you in top 10 by next week.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome.